Hi there, thanks for tuning in. So I often see articles and videos that tell you that investing in the long term is better for you and more profitable generally than investing in the short term. And people really seem to be stressing the importance of how great long-term investing is, but they kind of don't tell you how to start thinking in the long term. Because see, a lot of us are wired to just like short-term gratification. So I'm going to talk about instead 5 different ways in which you can start thinking in the long term and sort of flexing that muscle that focuses more on the long rather than the short term. Because at the end of the day, this stuff is very important, but knowing how to do it is something that needs to be talked about a lot more. And the first thing we're going to start with is talk about delayed gratification, which, as it sounds, is simply just being able to wait for good things to happen rather than going for them at once, because oftentimes you will get less of a benefit if you just go for something at once rather than waiting for it to grow and compound. And the best example of this is simply the Stanford marshmallow experiment done in 1972, where Stanford experimenters had children that could either get one small reward right now or wait around 15 minutes and then get 2 small rewards. And the whole thing was that there were follow-up studies done that showed that the children who preferred to wait and get the 2 smaller rewards later on performed way better in standardized testing such as the SAT and other measures of commonly measured success. So they found a correlation between delayed gratification and success later on in life, and there have been some follow-up or replica experiments done by different teams of researchers that have shown that maybe the correlations are a little less strong than implied by this experiment. Factors such as socioeconomic levels do actually matter in later life success. However, they do find that those correlations still exist. So while later life success will definitely not solely depend on the fact that you can handle delayed gratification, it definitely doesn't hurt. And let's just think about the adult versions of that marshmallow example. A lot of it manifests as impulse shopping. Maybe you want to buy that dress, but you're not actually sure if you really want it, but like, oh, it's on sale. And sometimes the best thing you can do is ask yourself if you truly really want that and give yourself maybe 3 days. And if in 3 days you still want that, then you get it. I find that when I do this, I often just end up not thinking about that item for the next couple days and then just completely forget about it. And in a way, the same thing can happen if you're on a diet and you're just delaying the gratification of buying some candy or buying some food that you shouldn't be indulging in. This may manifest in many little ways every single day, so catching those ways in which it manifests for you personally is crucial, because then you can start practicing every single day and doing that little bit that contributes every single day. Talk about doing things every single day. Item number 2 is creating habits. See, habits are created little by little and the results are very important, but they're not immediate. It simply is true that you can't go to the gym for a single day and become Giga Chad. You're not going to get sick abs. You're not going to get the most toned muscles ever. That requires a mix of knowledge, consistency, and patience. And so creating a healthy habit that can be whatever you really want to achieve. It doesn't have to be the gym. It can be learning a language. It can be even removing a negative habit such as quitting smoking. All this contributes towards a longer term goal. So having that habit creation, well, habit, no pun intended, is crucial towards long-term success. And you always have to focus on growth, what this habit is not giving you today, but going to give you in a couple of years. There's very little argument that learning another language is not going to be beneficial in some way, shape, or form. However, to do that, there is going to be a long road ahead, and you're not going to want to do it every day, but it is crucial that you keep doing it, because once you stop, it's going to be really hard to pick it back up. Now let's talk about item number 3, which I find absolutely essential, and that is to create a vision. Now, the difference between vision and goal is a little bit fuzzy. There is no strict definition of what a vision is and how it differs from a goal. However, I would generally say that a vision is something in the way longer term that can even take the form of how do I want to change the world. Having a vision is very important because it will basically act as your North Star for the way longer term. There's something called the cathedral mindset or the cathedral planning, which is basically planning projects that go beyond your own lifetime. What great things do you want to achieve? What do you want to leave behind once you're no longer in this world? That is a very personal thing that only you can determine. However, having that in the first place will make a world of difference. And there's multiple ways people help themselves determine this. Some people like to write their obituaries, which is a little grim, but it also kind of helps you narrow down how you want to be remembered. Something I personally have done myself is I simply write down where I see myself in 30 years on different categories, and you iterate on what you write. You're not going to get it right the first time necessarily, but as long as you keep iterating and trying to visualize this, you will be doing great. And remember to not get too specific on exactly where you're going to be or what you're going to be doing or exactly what your life is going to look like, because that probably isn't going to happen, because life just happens. But this will also help you ask consistently, is what I'm doing right now and where I see myself going right now matching my vision? And if not, what can I do to make sure that my vision will be accomplished all those years and decades later? I guess there's a reason why people who are traditionally considered successful often believe in writing down goals and writing down what you want to achieve. At the end of the day, putting things on paper maybe has a psychological effect that makes things more concrete and makes you want to achieve them more. So take your time to write these things down. Don't worry about getting it right the first time, but make sure you have a long-term vision. Let's also talk about item number 4, which is removing constraints. Sometimes you may be trying to visualize the long-term and you'll be like, oh, I want a summer home, or I want to travel the world, and then immediately you'll start thinking, well, I'll never have the money for that, or that just seems unrealistic. Don't do that. There may be things you will have to modify when the time comes, but for now, simply allow yourself to not have any constraints. You can absolutely achieve what you want to achieve, and the thing is, you should act as if you can achieve absolutely anything when you're setting your vision. Back to the language learning example, I have heard many people say they're simply not made for learning languages, which is kind of a limiting belief. You can absolutely do it. It will require some time, some patience, and a lot of dedication, but you absolutely can, no matter how difficult it is at first. So don't let those constraints tie you up and limit you, because you absolutely can do it and will do it. And finally, item number 5 is simply removing noise. Now, there's stuff in the news, there's stuff friends and family tell you that can be noise that can actually affect you in the short term, but don't really matter in the long term. Let's go back to the stock market example. There's articles coming out every single day about multiple stocks, about multiple economic decisions or things that politicians said that at the end of the day will not really have any long-term effect on the stock market. They just have a short-term fluctuation because of it. So if you're a long-term investor, why exactly should you care? So not consuming these things is pretty useful. That may mean you have to remove some distractions. For example, I know on Android the news page is the default setting when you have a phone, but you can actually remove that, and that helps me filter out a lot of that daily noise that I simply don't want to see. Or you can also remove personalized ads and news recommendations from some of your apps, and maybe that way you're not seeing all this noise about things that you actually care about. You're just seeing random ads. And just ask yourself, when that short-term noise gets to you, whether or not this will actually matter 5 to 10 years from now, because oftentimes the answer is simply no. And I guess this all compounds on each other. It will be much easier to ignore noise if you have a long-term vision set and you know that this noise will not affect your vision. So it's important to do all of these things that will really make easier the whole process of long-term thinking. So the 5 things I just talked about are creating habits, practicing delayed gratification, creating a vision, removing constraints, and removing noise. Long-term thinking isn't exactly natural for everyone, but if you do all of these 5 things, it may be a lot easier for it to come naturally. So with that said, that is the end of the video for now. However, if you're interested in investing, I can highly recommend that you use Webull as your broker. Webull is a commission-free broker that I personally use, and I find a pretty great app. And usually they have some pretty great sign-up bonuses, so if you sign up with the link down in the description, you may just get free money. That's risk-free return, and I never turn that down. So with that said, thank you so much for dedicating your valuable time to watching this video. There will be more content like this coming soon. Let me know if there's anything you want me to cover in particular. So once again, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.